Good evening and good tidings to all beings who are coming back to this strange channel of my host. My name is Komori, and I welcome you back to the darkest corners of Dane's mind. Lady Nightmare visits us once again, and she has more stories to tell for us. Please, stay tuned. And make sure your mind is open to the eldritch horrors that she and I speak of.
Good evening, little darklings. Welcome back. Tonight...
It is good to have you back, Miss Nightmare. Am I permitted to call you Miss Nightmare? Or would you prefer I keep calling you Lady Nightmare?
Whichever you prefer. Neither will get you killed.
How fortuitous for me. I see you've sent me a couple of stories. I believe I'll let you take the first one, like I did last time.
How kind of you. Tonight, we enter an evening of wonderful festivities as we celebrate the midsummer with my mother runs a B&B where the fair folk come to throw terrifying parties on midsummer night. Look, I'm not telling you to stay away from our B&B. Far from it. Please come. It's beautiful. And I do need to go to college, so if you're going to be in the Green Mountains, come to the Fayette Inn. Just never on the solstices. Please, I'm begging you. Never on the solstices and equinoxes. Why? Well, for reasons unknown to me. Heck, unknown even to my mother. The picturesque B&B our family runs hosts the fair folk on those dates for their biggest parties of the year. You're probably wondering a few things at this point. Who are the fair folk? Who am I? And why am I telling you this? You most likely already know the fair folk, but under other names. Actually, you probably have seen inane, dithering versions of them, plastered across Netflix, and maybe by Disney. That's right. I'm talking about the fairies, the fae, the fair folk. But they aren't anything like Tinkerbell or Rosetta. And they're not the 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮'𝓼 of Ireland either. Although they are similar, sort of like an Old English remix. And me? My name is Becca Lee. I'm 16, and my family has owned this inn for over 100 years. I'm telling you about this because I need to spread the word, to tell you about the events of Midsummer Night before any humans other than my family witness them. I have no idea what the fair folk would do to you if that happens, and I don't want to find out. So, without further ado, let's begin. Since Tina, my twin sister, and I were 12, we've been assisting our mom with the party. At this point, we've got the routine down pat. A week before Midsummer Night, we get several large packages in the mail, with recipes and ingredients for the fair folks' preferred cocktails and food for the evening. It can range from plain, outrageous, bucket-sized Bloody Marys and platters of baked Alaska were a hit a couple years ago, to outrageously simple margaritas with Safeway margarita mix and boiled hot dogs. This year, it was fried chicken, cherries jubilee, macarons, tater tots, maple bacon ice cream, Tom Collins cocktails, and kamikaze shots. It took Mom a couple of days to make enough food, and Tina and I stayed up for hours preparing the drinks perfectly. The day before we cleared out the outdoor party area where we host wedding receptions, setting up tables and a cocktail bar, my speakers, and of course lots of fairy lights and lanterns strung up and around the trees. Finally, it was June 20th. We closed the entire week before the solstice, just to ensure we have no human guests. We had plated the food and put it on buffet tables, and Tina's cocktail bar was all set up. We got dressed in our rooms, putting on our usual summer uniforms, a white linen short-sleeve button-down, a pair of sneakers, and a comfy pair of dark blue dress pants with deep pockets. The fair folk abhor ugly things and people, so we took care of our makeup, making it neat and classic, but trying to make it look like we put in effort. Tina took out our jewelry box and handed me the earrings and necklaces we saved for the solstices and equinoxes, which had tiny horseshoe charms and were made of iron and steel, the first of many talismans we used for protection. In our pockets, we placed dried St. John's wort, some prickly ash berries, and a four-leaf clover. We turned our socks inside out, and for good measure, we placed stones with natural holes in our shirt pockets. The fair folk have been known to take teenagers, including some long ago cousin Charlotte, who had an empty grave somewhere on the property. Tina and I refused to take any chances, but it's honestly not that scary to get ready for. It feels like prepping for a costume party, and we talked while we fumbled with socks and necklaces, trying to guess who would be there this year. Bet you a week of table setting that at least two of them show up in the same fire vehicle, Tina said. Oh, hell no, I replied. It's definitely a trend by now. Honestly, despite throwing their parties for years, we still don't know most of their names, except for the more famous ones in the royal court. Queen Titania, King Oberon, Puck, Moss, Mustard Seed, Peas Blossom, and Cobweb. Yep, it's those fairies. No idea how old William Shakespeare got hold of them, but he did. Trust me, they are way more scary outside of English class in Midsummer Night is hardly a dream. Anyways, where was I? Oh, right. We were finishing getting ready. I looked outside. It's almost dark. We should go meet Mom in the driveway. We headed down the driveway, passing empty guest rooms that wouldn't be occupied for a few days, hurrying out the front door to stand by our mom in the gravel driveway as the fair folk began to arrive. First, a line of sleek black Mercedes pulled up. Titania and her attendant spilled out. Titania was a gorgeous woman with long, lightly bronzed legs that looked far too natural for any spray tan, a face that was perfectly symmetrical, yet natural looking, and had hazel eyes that just made her long golden blonde curls pop even more. A crown that looked like it was from the nearest dollar he haphazardly placed atop them. Peas blossom, moth, mustard seed, and cobweb had always sort of blended together in one attractive group for me, each with a different body shape, skin tone, face, hair, height, you name it. But each of them was more beautiful than any human could ever hope to be. A group of roaring European sports cars sped up the drive next. Oberon, Puck, and the rest of the band of eternal frat boys jumped out. Where Titania was gorgeous, Oberon was handsome, muscular, but not overly bulky. A skin tone so naturally tan, it was impossible to figure out his race. Dark curly hair and a chiseled face that could look stubbly one moment but seem clean-shaven the next. Unlike his wife, Oberon wore an actual titanium circlet, but somehow it made him look handsome, not stupid. Puck, his right-hand man, reminded me of one of the leading men in the Bollywood movies my friend Anjali showed me. His shirt open, smoking something that looked like weed but smelled like cinnamon. The rest of Oberon's inner circle blended together like Titania's, a melting pot of attractive dudes, each different, and yet still the same. More and more cars started arriving, becoming steadily crazier. Cars made of bubbles, cars that were giant balls of rainbow fire, even one car that had no wheels or engine visible, but a misty outline of one. Just a misty outline of one. The fair folk poured into the party area as my mother, sister, and I hurried over, turning on the music, placing cocktails on platters to circulate around. In the early hours, as night was just falling, it just looked like a normal party, full of gorgeous young people. Titania and her friends were in the center, already shrieking tipsily as they jumped around to Dancing Queen. Tina and I squeezed through the crush of bodies, our platters always magically full of drinks, as the fair folk downed more and more, trying to stay out of reach from pinching hands and dirty jokes about human anatomy. The tables never emptied, and as the night darkened, the cheerful fairy lights seemed to glow slightly red. Footloose came on, and they all thronged the dance floor, some pirouetting better than ballerinas, others crumping, while the king and queen danced the jitterbug as if it was a 1920s party at Gatsby's mansion. Their voices became more incoherent when I turned on Whitney's I Want to Dance with Somebody. The female fair folk heading to the center of the dance floor, trying to get closer to the queen and her court. One fairy, already drunk, tried to dance next to Titania. There, for the first time of the night, she gave us a glimpse of what she really was. For a moment her skin flashed gray and she turned bone white and brittle straight. Her pupils looked like they were blown. Her body turned almost skeletal, and her fingers and toes lengthened into what looked like long metal talons. I would scare Wolverine. And she slashed through the air at the drunken fairy, who shrieked and fell over. The other fairies nearby sat upon her, partially shifting as they crushed around her, screaming and laughing until a pile of bloody strips remained. They stepped on the flesh as their golden shoes, as Don't Go Breaking My Heart came on, and the male fair folk headed back on the dance floor to seize partners. They continued on that way, all dancing different dance styles, shredding several of their own occasionally. As we still hurried around the dance floor, skin prickling as we thought about what those claws would do to a human. As midnight grew closer, we became less and less able to understand them as the fair folk shifted from English into horrible, screechy tones of a language that I suspected no human has ever learned and lived. Their dancing turned faster and faster as they smeared blood around while trying to sing along to Come On Eileen. But the real horror began when at 11 I foolishly played I Want It That Way. More and more of them turned into those horrible forms with dull, graying skin like that of a corpse, eyes bulging like dead fish, pupils blowing out. Those talons appeared, ripping through blood-stained luxury shoes, and they thronged together. Each of them tore others to pieces as talons stabbed through their stomachs, spurting blood like small fountains. Still, we had to go through the crowd, the talismans protecting us from getting blood or organs spattered on us. Finally, as midnight chimed and Baby One More Time finished playing, all that was left of the fair folk was a giant pile of expensive clothes and bloody body scraps. Now we had to clean them up, donning kitchen gloves and grabbing a garbage bag that my mom handed me. I picked up all of their clothes, careful not to get any body parts, and put them in the bag. Tina was busy getting the mops and brushes, while Mom and I heaped the parts in a pile, and we scrubbed all the blood towards the pile. Finally, asleep about 3 in the morning, but rising at 6 a.m. to go back to the party area. When we arrived, the fair folk were all reformed from the pile, thankfully without any lost arms or legs, which had been a big issue last year. Don't worry, they were clothed in new outfits, waiting to wave goodbye and head off in the cars, which drove straight down the road before making a hard right straight at the trees and disappearing. When they left, we immediately looked in the garbage bags where we'd left the bloody clothes of last night. As usual, they were now filled with sacks of gold that shifted into stacks of bills. Finally, when we dragged them into the safe, ready to slowly deposit them at the bank, Mom turned to Tina and I. "Well, girls," she said, "excited for the equinox?"
My, who knew the Fae keep such horrible forms? And to think, all of that just mere inches away from those family members. It could have been such a bloody mess.
Apparently it was one hell of a party.
One I wouldn't mind attending, considering my amorphous form.
Likewise.
So, keep that in mind whenever you're in a nice, fun party with unusual guests, as you never know. One incident could lead to your final breath. Now, this next story I will take the lead on like last time.
Go ahead.
An interesting tale of a boy whose father kept a lock on his closet door, and what he found behind it that changed his family forever. Why do we try so hard to win the affection of people who think we're wrong because of who we are? Some people see that wrongness ingrained in the essence of a person. When we talk to the obstinate haters, it's almost possible to see gears turning in their heads as we speak. They don't pick their position until after we've said our piece. Then they choose the opposite of whatever we said and convince themselves that they believed it all along. I turned everything my family hated just so I could have a chance at saving them. Perhaps they would despise me for the rest of their lives, but that would be a very short time span if I didn't intervene. Let's see, what is this image? It's not an image, it's a secret story. And for another time. I was now marked with a tattoo of a hunter on my forearm and the fangs of a vampire in my head. Two groups that hated one another could find common ground in the fact that both would be happy to kill me on sight. The best case scenario was looking to a lifetime of loneliness. On the plus side, though, I could fly. I sailed above two men I just stabbed. I distantly sensed a deep fissure had cut into my mind. I never was able to undo the fact that I ended a life that would be marked on me forever. I looked down at the tattoo. Then I landed softly next to a second-floor window, pressing my hands and feet against the wall like Spider-Man. On one hand, flying instantly felt natural, and I knew how to do it without question. On the other hand, it was petrifying to stare 15 feet at the ground below me with nothing but the guarantee of supernatural influence to keep me suspended. That's when my pulse would normally start racing. But my blood did not seem to be moving at all. Every part of my body, except the heart, felt cold, icy, Dead. I swallowed, then pressed open the window and climbed into a dark bedroom. I'd assumed that becoming a vampire would make me impervious to fear, but I quickly found out that I'd been very wrong. My senses felt heightened, so creeping into the pitch black room filled me with terrors never thought before. I thought I was being stealthy until I tripped on a foot of the bed and went sprawling to the floor. I tried and failed to be quiet. The door opened, spilling light into the room. A flame flickered to life. I looked up to see an old-fashioned gas lamp in a glass scone throw intertwined ribbons of darkness and light across the silent bedroom. Silhouetted in the doorway was a girl about my age. I've been worried about a large adult man coming in to kick my ass, but it quickly became apparent that a 13-year-old girl would be much more formidable opponent. I stood up quickly and then tripped on the same corner of the bed. I swore. Then I arose more slowly, convincing myself that there was a shred of dignity worth salvaging. The girl didn't look like she was impressed. In fact, she didn't really have any reaction. She just stood there, staring at me like I was nothing at all. That fact drove me completely insane. I wanted to wrestle with her and pin her to the ground and tell her that I was able to kill 3 vampires, and then let her know I cared less about her than she cared about me, which was nothing whatsoever. And then spoon her, and I hated the fact that she was making me feel things that my head told me I didn't want to feel. I've been going through a lot of this recently. Like another person was hijacking my emotions whenever I saw certain girls, and the more my brain tried to push the thoughts away, the stronger they fought their way back into my head. This girl looked like one of the characters from a really old movie, The Addams Family. Zero emotion, even though my own mind was completely scrambled. I needed to react by saying something that made me seem cool and confident, like I didn't care what she thought at all, because I didn't care. "Hey," I said. "Who the hell are you?" she asked with icy accusation. Damn, that made me want to spoon her more, which made me want to punch myself in the head until the thought stopped. "Lie," I told myself. "I'm Mango." "That's not a lie, dumbass," my brain answered in disappointment. "What the hell are you doing here?" she sought back. My parents are meeting with 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮'𝓼. I'm here from another congregation." She raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" I closed my eyes so that my brain could work by not seeing her. I'd read enough of Dad's journals to make up a lie, as long as I didn't trick myself by thinking too much. We're from Netton's congregation. How about you?" Still no change in her pale white facial expression. "Liu. He's my father." I got dizzy. "Your father is one of the dozen? Who are you?" "I'm Lana," she responded dismissively. "Are you supposed to be up here?" I scratched my head. "I'm actually supposed to find 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮. Where my parents are." I paused. "Do you know where that is?" She looked away, bored. "If you're really supposed to be there, wouldn't you already know?" I fumbled idle around my back pockets, then froze. This," I answered enthusiastically, pulling a stake from my backpack. Made very sure that she didn't see the Scooby-Doo design, which suddenly seemed ridiculously childish. Her eyes grew wide at the sight of the weapon. "I found this outside, and I need to show it to them right away." She looked at me with what appeared to be a mixture of admiration and fear, and I was quite pleased with myself. "Follow me," she snapped before turning around and heading into the hall. I scuttled after her, thinking of all the stories I would tell as we walked so that I could evoke even more of those impressed reactions. We walked in silence. It was a very big house, which meant a very long silence. She broke the quiet several minutes later. "This is the chamber," she whispered, pointing to an ornate door. "Goodbye." Then Lana turned and walked away, which was fine. I didn't mind. Besides, I had to focus on finding my family. I turned to face the door. It was not a welcoming omen, ornately carved from stone, The door featured a myriad of tiny sculptures running up and down its edges. 13 terrifying faces reached out as though they wanted to bite my fingers off and lick the bloody stumps clean. The 13th was at the very top. No matter where I stood, the eyes seemed to follow me. They blinked. I jumped back. No, it was impossible for stone to blink, right? Trembling, I looked back up at it. Everything was still. My heart would normally have been beating hard enough to crack my ribs, but I was slowly beginning to understand why I would never feel that way again. Things would be different from now on. There was only one way forward. I reached out and grabbed the stone handle with both hands. It took all my effort to pull it slowly toward me. I realized, distantly, that this path was only meant for those who were really, really certain they wanted to enter. Once the crack was big enough to squeeze my gut through, I popped inside, and I nearly fainted at the sight before me. My family was alive, but I didn't know how long that would be true. My brothers were tied to 2 wooden poles on one side of the room. 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮's blonde hair hung low over his bowed head. 𝓓𝓪's wild black mane was a ruffled mess that cascaded from his scalp as he stared at the ceiling. Both were unaware of my entrance. Across from them, near the middle of the room, stood my father, arms fastened behind him. He was bound atop a pillar that seemed to serve as a centerpiece, the type of place you'd put a sacrifice. Everything about the scene was wrong. Parents are supposed to be the source of stability and order in a chaotic and changing world, providing structure and boundaries even when we disagree with them. Seeing him so broken and helpless shifted something hidden inside me. The mental fissure that had quietly broken earlier in the night now split deeper than I thought possible. Everything in my world was vulnerable. I closed my eyes and thought of the journals. A good hunter knows that stealth is crucial when facing an unseen threat. If multiple allies are in danger, assist those that have the greatest chance at turning the odds, not the ones you feel emotionally closest to. You can't save their bodies if you first lose your head. I opened my eyes and took the path forward. Lifting my legs off the ground, I floated towards my brothers, landing stealthily behind them. The ropes that held their wrists around the poles looked extremely tight. I pulled out a stake and stabbed at 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮's ropes, pushing the tip between the threads and wedging them back and forth. Then I reached back and plunged it deeper into the knot. I pulled and pushed and prodded. Frustration quickly turned to panic as the ropes refused to show any sign of slackening. "Come on!" I screamed, whispered. A sound carried through the empty stone room much more loudly than I had anticipated. 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮 stirred. Then he gasped. "Mangle!" he hissed groggily. What the hell are you doing here?" 𝓓𝓪 groaned from next to us. "What's happening?" "It's Mangle. We must have found him after all and taken him here. Fuck, I thought they might just ignore him if we did as well." I wanted to scream at my brother, to shake him, to tell him to stop doubting me when I was in the middle of succeeding where they had failed. But the panic of falling short severely outweighed the emotional need to fight back against those who expected me to fail, so I pulled harder at the rope. "Mangle!" 𝓓𝓪 answered too loudly. "Get the fuck out of here before they realize they've forgotten about you." I saw red. I pulled tighter. The ropes were like stone. 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮 turned and looked down at me. "He's right, Mangle. You can still escape. They probably won't even notice. Go!" That was it. That was it. Even when I was succeeding right in front of my family, they thought I was in the act of failing. The damn ropes were the only thing standing in my way, and at the worst possible moment, they absolutely refused to cooperate. I was tired of playing by these rules. It was time to change the game. The act was instinctual. I don't know how I knew, but I knew how. I opened my mouth and willed my fangs longer, hissing loudly. "Fuck!" 𝓓𝓪 screamed. "They've got to him and turned him. He's going to bite you, 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮." And I bit, and bit, and bit some more. Within seconds, the rope lays in tattered shreds at my feet. 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮 was staring at me in complete shock. Then I turned on 𝓓𝓪. He yelled at me the whole time, but the last rope could come loose. He snapped what was left of the strands and jumped away. When I looked up, my brothers were standing side by side, staring at me in fear. "Keep quiet," I growled, "and watch for traps. From what I've read, the chamber should have at least one." I whipped my backpack off and reached out to open the zipper. "What the hell? You've been marked?" 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮 asked in shock as he stared at the tattoo in my arm. Mangle, how is that possible? I squeezed the backpack hard enough to hear it rip. You found out I've been turned. I saved your sorry asses from dying, and the most incredible thing to you is that I've actually accomplished what everyone else in the family takes for granted. Why the fuck did I repressed Mangle. Even if you and I are the only ones who understand. A deep yet feminine voice boomed through the chamber. I look up to see a pale woman with a short platinum blonde hair floating down slowly downward from the ceiling. Her ice-chip blue eyes cut through everything else. It felt like they were seeing me from the inside out. Nausea overwhelmed me, but I could not break my gaze. Back away, Mangle, 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮'𝓼 ordered, and desperation in the voice made me want to cry. My throat was sandpapery dry. I could barely speak. Is that 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮'𝓼? Zorn whispered, and it's too late to back away. She landed gently on the pillar next to Dad, looking down on the rest of us. It was too late long ago, she answered with a sickening tone of finality. Then 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮 opened her mouth, and it kept opening. 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches. That's when her fangs grew. Unlike the tiny barbs of my gums, though, hers stretched into angry sabers that curved to her chin and dripped into angry-looking tips. A second pair of fangs sprang up from her jaws, creating a fearful symmetry that balanced the scale on both sides. I whimpered. I knew, somehow, that she could see the fear radiating from me like shimmering heat waves. 𝓓𝓪𝓷𝓮's ability to prod my emotions was so powerful that I could feel it inside me, like Doctor's right tongue depressor. You are afraid, Mangle. I cannot tell if she spoke aloud or just put the thought in my head. And that's the only correct instinct you've had all night. Then she opened her jaw even wider and brought it down on my father. My. Such an interesting tale of a newly turned vampire. I'm going to say family.
Agreed.
I should go looking more into the story, see if I could find more, to get more context on the previous endeavors. But in comparison from this and the Fae, I believe I would take my chances partying with the Fae than trying my hand at saving family. For you never know. Family could end up betraying you as you are.
Yes.
I do believe this concludes our time for the reading. To those of you who've stuck around, I appreciate it. I hope that these stories, despite being unusually light, have left a dark mark on your heart for the thoughts that you might have. For the Fae will never be as pretty as one thinks when they're cutting loose and cutting fools. Make sure you continue watching this channel, as me and Lady Nightmare will always have more stories to tell. And as always, we will tell you more stories next time. Good tidings and good night.